The syringe that changes everything, and Lucas is left absolutely floored. Oh, honey, get comfortable, because this first story is one of those slow-burning revelations that starts out looking like a small detail and ends up turning an entire investigation completely upside down. We are talking about a syringe. One single syringe. And what was, or more accurately, what was not, inside it is about to rock Lucas to his very core and reframe everything we thought we understood about what has been happening in Port Charles. Let us back up just a little because the setup here is everything. Britt has been through an absolute whirlwind. She was in Tortola. She collapsed in front of Rocco, and she assumed, completely reasonably, that her Huntington's disease was getting worse. She had not had her medication in some time, and her body was telling her something was very wrong. Rocco, sweet and determined as he always is, reached out to Charlotte, who got word to the man everyone believed was Nathan, asking him to send Britt's medication urgently. And a package arrived. Vials. Labeled correctly. Looking every bit like the medication Britt desperately needed. But here is the devastating truth that was hiding underneath all of that apparent kindness. Ross had gotten to those vials first. He filled them with poison. The plan was that Britt would inject herself, her death would look like a tragic complication of her illness, and the blame could quietly be pointed at the man who sent the package. A clean, calculated, utterly cold-blooded setup. Except, Britt never got the chance to inject herself. Because when Dante and Lulu arrived to collect Rocco, and Rocco refused to budge without Britt, the situation escalated and the police got involved. Britt was arrested. And as awful as that sounds, as unfair and painful as that arrest was for her, it may have literally saved her life. Because the moment those handcuffs went on, the needle stayed down. Now Britt is being extradited back to Port Charles, facing serious charges. And because of her medical history and the fact that she fainted overseas, there is going to be a medical evaluation waiting for her when she arrives, possibly at General Hospital itself, possibly under guard, but a checkup is coming. And that checkup is what sets this entire revelation in motion. Because Joe has information. Specific, stunning, case-changing information. He knows what was actually in one of the syringes found in Britt's possession, and it was not poison. It was not medication. It was saline. Plain, harmless, simple saline solution. And when Lucas hears that, when Joe shares what was in that syringe, Lucas is going to be absolutely floored. Because Lucas is smart enough to immediately connect the dots. If what Britt had was saline, if the medication she thought she was taking was never real medication at all, then everything surrounding those vials takes on a completely different meaning. And then comes the thought that is going to hit Lucas like a freight train. Marco. His Marco. The man he loved. If the vials were tampered with, if what was stolen from cold case evidence was also saline rather than anything truly dangerous, then Marco may have died over nothing. Marco may have been killed as part of a setup built on a lie, where the thing everyone thought was at the center of it was never what it appeared to be at all. That realization is going to destroy Lucas. The grief he has already been carrying is going to take on a whole new dimension of agony. Because it means the people pulling these strings were not just ruthless. They were willing to let an innocent man die to protect a deception built around something completely harmless. And that raises even bigger questions. If those vials were saline, what was Ross actually protecting? What is the real secret buried underneath all of this? And who exactly was being set up to take the fall when everything came crashing down? The investigation just got a whole lot more complicated, darlings. And Lucas is right in the middle of it. Portia's emotions reach a breaking point, and this baby is not waiting. Now we are shifting to a storyline that is equal parts heartwarming and absolutely terrifying, because a baby is coming to Port Charles, and the circumstances surrounding this arrival are anything but calm. Portia is heavily pregnant. She is emotionally stretched to her absolute limit, and summer spoilers are telling us that a heated confrontation is going to push her body into labor before anyone is truly ready. Let us talk about where Portia is emotionally right now, because this woman has been carrying an enormous amount on her shoulders. She and Curtis have been trying, genuinely, sincerely trying, to get on the same page for the sake of their family. They want to bring this baby into a stable, loving environment. They want things to be better. And for a moment it looked like they might actually get there. but the peace between them is fragile. And fragile things in Port Charles do not tend to last very long. Trina is fed up. She has reached the point where she needs to take a step back from both of her parents, and that decision, as understandable as it is adding a whole new layer of tension to an already strained household. Because when Trina pulls away, both Portia and Curtis feel it. They feel the weight of having pushed their daughter to that point. And that kind of guilt, sitting on top of everything else they're already dealing with, is not a recipe for calm and peaceful conversations. So when the next blow-up comes, whether it is between Portia and Curtis directly, or whether it involves Jordan stepping back into the middle of things, the emotional explosion that follows is going to be more than Portia's body can handle. Her stress hits a breaking point. Her emotions pour out in a way she cannot control. And before anyone fully registers what is happening, the contractions start. And they're not gentle. They are not the kind that give you hours and hours to calmly make your way to the hospital. They are the kind that make it immediately clear that this baby is coming now on this timeline, ready or not. The terrifying question is whether Portia is going to make it to General Hospital in time. Because spoilers are hinting that this delivery might not happen in a clean, controlled hospital setting. There is a real possibility that Portia ends up going through this somewhere far less equipped, somewhere that raises the stakes in every direction. And if you have been watching soaps long enough, and I know you have, darling, you know that a birth happening outside the hospital almost never goes smoothly. The drama loves to pile on in those moments. Whether this little one enters the world in the safest possible way or through a terrifying and chaotic arrival, there is hope at the end of it. Hope that this baby is healthy. Hope that holding this child in her arms gives Portia something to anchor herself to through all the chaos surrounding her life right now. And hope that this new little person, this brand new beginning, might be exactly what it takes to start healing the fractures in this family. Because Trina loves her parents underneath all of that frustration. And a baby sibling has a way of reminding people what actually matters. There is also word that someone very important to this family is going to find his way back to Port Charles around this time, someone whose arrival is going to mean everything to Curtis in this moment. A familiar face. A steadying presence. Coming right when he is needed most. This birth story is going to be messy and scary and deeply emotional, and we would not expect anything less from General Hospital. Is Ross who he claims to be, or is something far more sinister hiding underneath? All right, darlings, I have saved the most mind-bending, hair-raising, absolutely spine-tingling theory for last. Because this one is going to send the General Hospital fan community into an absolute frenzy. And what makes it so thrillingly unnerving is that the clue did not come from a promo or a leaked photo or an insider tip. It came from inside the show itself. Hidden in plain sight. Dropped into a casual conversation like a tiny bomb waiting to go off. Here is what happened. Ezra made a remark about Ross, a seemingly throwaway, almost offhand comment describing him as having a kind of corpse-like quality about him. A dead behind the eyes, walking through life like his not quite belong-it energy. And Sidwell, of all people, laughed at it. Like it was just a colorful observation about a cold and calculating man. But what if it was not throwaway at all? What if that line was planted deliberately? What if the writers were dropping a breadcrumb for the most eagle-eyed, sharp-minded fans in the audience? A clue pointing towards something that would completely rewrite everything we think we know about Ross. Because here is the theory that is now burning through the General Hospital fan community, like wildfire. What if Ross is not who he says he is? What if Ross is not an original person at all, but rather a version, a resurrection, a clone of one of the most dangerous and iconic villains this show has ever produced? What if Ross is actually a reborn version of Caesar Faison? Now, before you dismiss that, let us look at the evidence that is quietly stacking up. The physical resemblance between the actor playing Ross and the man who originally played Caesar at a similar age has been noticed and commented on by fans for weeks now. It is specific enough that people started wondering whether the casting was entirely coincidental or entirely intentional. Then there is the matter of what we know about Caesar's remains. His brain, and yes, this show went there, and we're here for every single moment of it. His brain ended up in a jar. It passed through several hands. It eventually made its way to the WSB during a time when Victor was very much in charge of what the WSB was doing behind closed doors. And Victor, as we all know, was not exactly using WSB resources for noble purposes. Cloning, resurrection, reconstruction. These are not outside the realm of what the show has already established as possible. They were hinting at exactly these kinds of concepts well over a year ago, woven into conversations about a secret project, a dangerous weapon, that turns out to be the very same cold fusion prototype that Liesel just finished completing. Caesar's final project. His last obsession. The thing he never got to see through to completion. And now here is the detail that makes your blood run cold when you put it all together. Liesel has never once seen Ross face to face. Not once. Every interaction between Ross and anything connected to Liesel has been handled through intermediaries. Through Cassius. Through his other people. Ross himself has never stepped into the same room as Liesel.
Why?
Why would a man this bold, this controlling, this hands-on about every other aspect of his operation, keep himself completely invisible to one specific person? Unless he cannot risk her seeing him. Unless Liesel, who knew Caesar more intimately than almost anyone alive, is the one person who would take one look at this man and know. Know immediately. Know with absolute certainty. Because you cannot fool someone who loved you. You cannot fool someone who looked into your eyes for years and years and memorized everything about you. If Ross is Caesar, in any form, through any means, then Liesel seeing his face for the first time would not just be a dramatic moment. It would be the moment the entire truth of this storyline cracks completely open. Ross is running out of time in Port Charles. His days are numbered, and spoilers make that very clear. Which means if this revelation is coming, if the show is going to pull back the curtain on who Ross truly is, it has to happen soon. Very soon. And if it does? If that confrontation between Liesel and Ross becomes the moment she looks into his face and sees a ghost staring back at her, darlings, that is going to be one of the most stunning scenes this show has delivered in years. Or perhaps, and this is the other possibility we have to leave room for, that corpse-like remark was simply the show telling us exactly what is coming for Ross. Not a clue about his identity. Just a quiet, darkly poetic warning. A man already living on borrowed time. A dead man walking. Either way, the end of Ross is coming. And however it arrives, it is going to be absolutely unforgettable. Port Charles is delivering the summer in a way that reminds every single one of us why we fell in love with this show in the first place. Mystery layered on top of mystery. Secrets wrapped inside other secrets. And characters we have known and loved for decades being pushed to their absolute limits.